Hi, Theo. First of all, I apologize for the delay in my reply. There was a bit of a false call with the weather recently, so I was out for the last couple days, and I was not able to take a look at this file. But let's take a look at what we have here. Let's see, properties. I've got the properties panel pulled up. Just going to start clicking on your face. All right, so far all this looks fine. The front hair pivot, the front hair, the head nud. The nud, although it's not necessary, you might want to keep it above all other pivots just to be on the safe side. Let's see here, face zero pivot. The pivot for the face itself, you may also want to adjust it so that it lands at the spot where the face itself is going to rotate. So if we want this face to rotate, let me adjust this little thing here, just so we can get an idea of how it's going to rotate. If we want our face to rotate like this, then we need to make sure we put our pivot point at that spot right there. So that would be the appropriate spot for that pivot. Let's see. Here we have the neck pivot. Well, the neck should always be below the face pivot itself. I'm assuming this is your neck, so maybe we'll move the neck down here, because the neck will need to rotate in a way that it doesn't interfere with the face. So this neck should pivot around this pivot point, so that when it does pivot, it goes like this, and it can take the face with it, something like that. Okay? So the neck pivot below the face pivot. The face pivot can go anywhere along the neck as long as it's above the main neck pivot. So you might even be able to place it up here somewhere so that your face can rotate around that section instead, like that. Okay, so there's that. Let's see here. That's the mouth. Okay, so the mouth is improperly labeled. Here I can see that it has the normal assignment to it. And this is something that you do for the nested symbols. Let me take a look at this pivot real quick. Now, the pivot it's fine. So it tells me that somehow you renamed this after having calibrated it. Let's see, nose pivot. And then we have the nose pivot named normal, where this nose needs to be called something like zero nose or something like that. Here we go, the left eye, and the left eye is not configured. This is the name of an internal point. Left brow, that's fine. Right ear. Okay, all of that other stuff is fine. So let me kind of delete all this and show you how I would go about configuring this character or this face so that it works. Okay, let me make sure all the pivots are gone. There's a couple more pivots in there. Got to make sure you keep an eye out for hidden pivots, because duplicated pivots will mess you up also. Alright, so I'm going to select everything. I'm going to launch Puppet Producer now. Let's see. Here we go. We're looking at the front angle. I'm going to start with the hair. Oh, well, one of the things I like to do when I'm going to redo something is make sure I clean up everything. So I use this little eraser tool. That makes sure that everything has been cleaned up, so there's no instance names on anything. You can see there's nothing on the properties panel. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the hair, front hair. Then we do the right eye, the left eye, the nose, the mouth. We're going to do the neck. We're going to do the left ear and the right ear. Now, for the most part, this is ready to go. Well, here's the face. All right, so now we got to pay attention to the placement of the pivot points. Now, a lot of the times, depending on how you create this, you can control how the pivot points end up. But in this case, we're not going to worry about that too much. We're going to readjust the pivot point for the neck so it's placed along the place. Well, I guess for your character, your character's neck is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, it's got pretty even parts in here, so I'm assuming this neck is never really going to spin too much. So you probably want to keep that pivot point right there, so if anything, it spins like that. So we're going to adjust the face pivot. Just put it slightly above the neck. The mouth is fine where it's at. We're going to take that nud and put it outside of the body. And I think that's pretty much all we need for now. Now the reason that these things also don't show up inside of your Crazy Talk animator is because you also need to configure the inside sprite. So we're going to double click on this eye right here. And we have a basic shape here. So we're going to convert that into a symbol. Modify, convert to symbol. All right. And we're just going to leave that in the center. So now that this symbol is converted, you can see that it doesn't have an instance name either. So for the nested symbols, that's when you go into the eye area and assign the normal to it. So it's normal 1 inside of the left eye 0. So here we go. This is the right eye 0. We're going to double click and we're going to select it. And we can convert it into a symbol first, or we can just click this button and it automatically convert it for us. So now it's a symbol and it's been converted to normal 1. Now keep in mind that to get all the expressions, you do need to create 13 different eyes. So because these are sunglasses, you can probably get away with just doing all of them the same. I'm going to break this apart real quick so it's no longer a symbol and it's no longer configured. I'm just going to replicate it 13 times. Press the F6 function key right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So that's 13 of them. Since I have all 13 of them and none of them are converted into symbols, I can also have this automatic configuration button here do the work for me. I just click it one time. So on frame 1, I have the normal 0. Let's see here, frame 5, I have the stretch eye edges. Number 10, I have the angry 10. And on number 13, I have the raising cheeks angry. All right, so let's go ahead and configure this one to mine as well. You don't have to break these apart, but I usually do because I like to use the auto config. But if you are doing individual eyes, I recommend just doing them all before you do all this. But you can also do these one at a time, so it's no big deal. In this case, I'm just going to break this apart, replicate it 12 more times so we can have 13. Press that. I could have easily created all 13 of them and go in there one by one, select it, click normal. Select the next one, click the exert close, and then click the next one and select the closed one and configure each one individually, but I didn't do that in this case. I prefer to use the automatic one. But anyways, you have nested symbols inside of a primary symbol, and the primary one should be called left eye 0, and this is where you were going wrong with the eyes. I have also noticed that you have eyebrows here, so I'm going to go to the main area and configure my eyebrow and configure that eyebrow. Maybe move these up a little bit so they're actually touching the eyebrow. It's not too necessary, but I like to keep everything a little bit cleaner. The eyebrows work the same way as the eyes. Double click on it and go inside, and once you go inside you can switch to the nested area. You can see that you're going to need 18 eyebrows. So let's see here, like shrink. Maybe you want to adjust it so that this eyebrow kind of goes like this when it shrinks. Let's let's see, number 3 is the happy. So maybe we want to do something that kind of makes them look happy. I don't know. And you continue doing all that until you have 18. In this case, I'm just going to replicate, copy, paste in place, and just replicate all the way until 18. And use my automatic configuration button, and I have all of my eyebrows. Okay. So if these are not eyebrows and they're part of the glasses, then maybe you just want to keep that solid, and you can get away with just having one. But it still has to have at least one named normal. That's why it's red. So you have that one named normal, and that's fine. Or you could just, you could just leave it like this right now, and it'll work just fine, because it needs at least one instance, one symbol that's configured for it to work. If you want to have all the expressions, then I recommend just or if you just want to cover your bases so you don't have any missing sprites, then we just break that apart. We're just going to replicate it, so it's replicated 18 times. And it's basically the same symbol, but we're just going to assign that same symbol to all of these, and we have all of our sprites covered. Same thing with the nose. We need at least one nose that's labeled normal. All right. And you can go in there and do the same thing for 7 additional noses, depending on the expressions that you want to do. And the mouth is the same way. Double click, switch to mouth, convert that into a normal, and you can see that it's configured as normal, and it's inside of the mouth 0, which corresponds to the mouth 0 pivot. And that's pretty much it. The eyebrows, the eyes, the nose, and the mouth, you need to have nested symbols. Also, the hands, those are objects that you require nested symbols as well. So when you do this and if your hands don't show up, this is probably the reason why. Okay, so hopefully this gets you back on track. Once again, I apologize for the delay in my reply, but I hope this gets you going. And if you have any other questions, feel free to write me back.